What if I told you the stock market was not born in New York, not in London, but in Amsterdam, more than 4 centuries ago, before Wall Street skyscrapers, before tickers flashing red and green, before the chaos of the trading floor? There was a quiet city on the edge of the North Sea, a city of merchants, sailors, and dreamers. It was the early 1600s. Europe was shifting. Old empires rose and fell, but Amsterdam was different. This small Dutch port was buzzing with life. Ships lined the harbours, their sails heavy with spices, silk, and porcelain, treasures from half a world away. The city smelled of salt air and tobacco smoke. In taverns and coffee houses, merchants whispered of fortunes made and lost on the high seas. Every voyage was a gamble. One storm, one pirate attack, one wrong turn, and everything could vanish overnight. And yet, the rewards were irresistible. A single successful trip could make a man rich beyond imagination. But these voyages demanded more money than most could risk alone. And so, a new idea began to take shape in Amsterdam. A way for many to share in the cost and the rewards of exploration. This was the moment the world changed. The moment where commerce transformed into something bigger, something that would echo for centuries. This is the story of the first stock market, Amsterdam's wild beginning. Why Amsterdam? Why here? And why now? At the dawn of the 17th century, Amsterdam was unlike any other city in Europe. It wasn't the largest, nor the most powerful empire, but it was something else entirely. A crossroads of the world. Ships streamed in from every direction. From the Baltic came timber and furs. From the Americas, sugar and tobacco. And from Asia, the treasures that stirred imaginations most: spices, silks, and porcelain. The city's canals were crowded with vessels unloading their cargo, while warehouses rose like monuments to trade itself. Amsterdam thrived not through kings or conquests, but through merchants. Ordinary men who pooled their savings, took enormous risks, and wagered their lives and fortunes on the tides. This was the Dutch Golden Age, when commerce and exploration reshaped the very idea of wealth. Unlike other European powers, the Dutch embraced something radical, a republic of merchants, where innovation and enterprise thrived. Banking was advanced, literacy was high, and ideas flowed as freely as goods. Amsterdam became the financial nerve center of the world, a place where money itself seemed to take on a new life. And in this environment, with so much wealth changing hands and so much risk at sea, the conditions were perfect for something entirely new to be born. A marketplace not of spices or sugar, but of shares in companies. A market for ownership itself, the very first stock market. In 1602, a bold experiment began. The Dutch government granted a charter to a new kind of company, the Verenigde Oostindische Compagnie, better known as the Dutch East India Company, or the VOC. Its mission was simple, yet staggering: to dominate the lucrative spice trade with Asia. But to send fleets across oceans, build forts, and secure trade routes required sums of money beyond the reach of even the wealthiest merchants. So the VOC tried something unprecedented. Instead of relying on a handful of financiers, it invited anyone with enough savings to buy a share of the company. For the first time, ordinary citizens could own a piece of a vast commercial empire. These weren't loans, they weren't favors to be repaid. They were shares, slices of ownership, promises that if the voyages succeeded, profits would be divided among those who invested. The idea was revolutionary. Risk was no longer carried by a single merchant or a small group of partners. It was spread across hundreds of investors. And just as important, these shares could be traded. An investor didn't have to wait years for ships to return to cash out. If he grew nervous, he could sell his share to someone else. If he believed in the venture, he could buy more. Ownership itself became liquid, moving from hand to hand as easily as coins on a tavern table. What began as a simple solution to fund voyages would soon ignite something far greater: the creation of a market unlike anything the world had seen before. The Amsterdam Exchange, the world's first true stock market. The ink on those first share certificates had barely dried before something remarkable and dangerous began to happen. In taverns, coffee houses, and even on the streets of Amsterdam, people weren't just holding their shares, they were trading them. Whispers of a returning ship with a hold full of spices could send prices soaring overnight. A rumor of storms off the Cape of Good Hope could send them crashing just as quickly. Merchants became traders, traders became speculators, and soon the buying and selling of paper claims became as profitable and as risky as the voyages themselves. For the first time, wealth was being made and lost, not through ships and cargo, but through perception, rumor, and emotion. The marketplace transformed into a stage where greed and fear battled daily. And as markets heated up, a new tactic emerged, one that still stirs controversy today: short selling. Some traders discovered they could sell shares they didn't even own, betting prices would fall so they could buy them back cheaper later. It was bold, it was dangerous, and it drove tempers and fortunes to extremes. Arguments broke out in coffee houses, disputes spilled into the courts, pamphlets warned of corruption and manipulation. Yet, despite the chaos, something extraordinary was happening. The rules of modern finance were being written in real time. This wasn't just trade, this was speculation. A fever that would spread from Amsterdam to London, to New York, and eventually to every corner of the globe. The world had discovered that money could vanish or multiply in an instant, not by crossing oceans, but by changing hands across a crowded marketplace. From the frenzy of Amsterdam's exchange, something lasting began to emerge. What started as chaos slowly hardened into structure. Out of speculation came systems, rules, practices, and habits that became the very foundation of modern investing. There were brokers, middlemen who matched buyers with sellers. There were trading halls, places where deals were struck openly under watchful eyes. There were even early regulators, struggling to keep order in a marketplace that seemed impossible to tame. Concepts we take for granted today, liquidity, diversification, transparency, all began here, often born from scandal or mistake. The same arguments still heard in financial circles now, about speculation, manipulation, and risk, were alive in Amsterdam 4 centuries ago. The Dutch exchange also revealed something profound. Markets were not just about goods, or ships, or voyages. They were about trust. Trust that a share would be honored, trust that a buyer would pay, trust that a piece of paper represented something real, even if it was thousands of miles away across the ocean. And that trust, fragile, volatile, but powerful, is what allowed finance to grow beyond one city, beyond one company, beyond one empire. The Dutch had done more than fund voyages. They had invented a new way of imagining wealth itself, wealth that could be traded, measured, and multiplied without ever touching a single ship's sail or spice cargo. In Amsterdam, the idea of the market as we know it was born. And the echoes of that experiment still shape every trade, every investment, every boom and bust that has followed. 400 years have passed since the first share was traded in Amsterdam. The canals are quieter now, the coffee houses filled with tourists instead of merchants. But the lessons of that city's wild beginning still echo today. Markets remain, built on the same fragile foundations: trust, ambition, and human emotion. The greed that drove men to speculate on spice voyages is the same greed that fuels bubbles today. The fear that sent prices crashing on rumors of a storm is the same fear that drives panics on trading floors and in digital markets. Amsterdam showed us that markets are not just about money, they are about people, their hopes, their mistakes, their willingness to risk everything for the chance of something greater. From the first share certificate in 1602 to the complex exchanges of today, one truth has remained constant. Markets are a mirror of human nature, and perhaps the most important lesson is this: finance has always been more than numbers on a page. It is a story of power, of trust, of dreams and failures. Stories that began in Amsterdam and continue with us today. In Amsterdam, the idea of the market as we know it was born, and the echoes of that experiment still shape every trade, every investment, every boom and bust that has followed. If you've stayed with me until now, thank you. I truly appreciate you taking the time to explore history's twists and turns with me. If you enjoyed the journey, don't forget to tap like and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let me know where in the world you're watching from. Until next time, this has been The Capital Files.